Hello, I'm Jonathan Block. Welcome. Typically, I release a video on Tuesdays. It's a Tuesday morning, and I figured, well, I'll just stream instead. So I've been doing streaming really just to work out ideas and new kind of future regular videos. Turn the volume of that back up. This lets me kind of keep that going in the background. Typically in the regular videos, I kind of fade it out so you can hear. So I'm doing sound-on-sound looping using long delay mode on the Boss RE202 Space Echo using Mellotron accordion sounds. Why don't I just get into the signal chain? So I've got a Mellotron M4000D Mini. Its master mono analog output is going into a Boss volume pedal on the floor. From there, we go into a Boss GT1000 Core multi-effects, and the stereo output from that, it's a mono input into that because the Mellotron's mono. The stereo output from the GT1000 Core goes into the Boss Space Echo, and then the output from the Space Echo, which is stereo, I have going into a Focusrite Scarlett 18i8 interface. The output from that is actually going into a Universal Audio Volt 276 interface. So the Universal Audio interface goes right to a computer, and that's how I'm doing the streaming. I'm using two interfaces, and the Focusrite goes to the iPad so that I can use the iPad as well. This is a hardware-only jam, so I don't even really need the iPad, but I've just found it's easier to keep the same setup. When I'm doing hardware jams like this, I just use GarageBand. So GarageBand's up, but I'm not recording into it. I'm recording right into, well, actually, I'm not recording, I'm streaming. I could be recording as well, but this is just kind of part of the performance tool. But for this jam, again, I will not need that. So let's see, we've pretty much faded out at this point. When I turn that off, I'll get this reset for next time. So I'm using just accordion sounds. I've used accordion sounds before within other jams, particularly through the effects. You get nice organy synth sounds. But about a month ago, I was talking with my friend Jimmy Sear, who's, we have a duo, kind of folk rock duo. We're on YouTube. You can find it if you want it. But he was talking about how he likes accordions on I think the accordion's in Cubasis. And I was saying, you know, I've done stuff with accordions too. I should just do some recordings just with accordion. So there's actually 4 accordions on kind of the stock sound card that comes with the Mellotron here. Why don't I go back to just a plain old effect with nothing on? And we'll start with just the clean sounds, and then I'll get into the looping aspect of it and how I'm doing soundscapes and whatnot. If the beginning of the jam when we came in was kind of weird sounding, I don't know if it was or not, but I noticed halfway through that the mic was on. And just because of the synchronization and whatnot, when the mic's on and it picks up stuff, it just kind of makes things kind of wonky. So we're back to the Mellotron here. I've got the Mellotron. I'm not going to show it because you can't see it, but typically when you're scrolling through the sounds, you're going through each of the machines. So the Mellotron Mark I, the Mellotron Mark II, M400, some Chamberlins, etc. But you can also set it up so it's going just through particular instruments, and that's what I have here. It's alphabetical though, so there's 3 accordions where the name of the patch is actually accordion, but then there's one that's called French accordion on the Mark II, so that one doesn't show up in the list until you get to the Fs. So I just essentially start with the accordion. So I'm using accordion from the Mark II, the French accordion from the Mark II, and then the accordion from the Chamberlin M1 and the Chamberlin Music Master. So let's just start here. Let's start with the French accordion. So you're hearing some compression. I've got compression on here. I do have some compression on GarageBand at the end of the chain, very light. Let's go over to the Mark II accordion. And then we have the Chamberlin M1 accordion. And finally, we have the Music Master, Chamberlin Music Master accordion. All right, we're redlining slightly here. Let me turn that down. Let's see if that helps. No, we are still redlining. Okay. Now let's move over to the effects. I have two stock Mellotron patches that I've created that I always use. There's a little bit of compression and a little bit of reverb, and then I can just add things as I want. So I'm going to start with that so that the jam will start with more accordion-sounding accordion sounds. And then as I move into the second half of the jam, I'm going to be using other patches I've created that will be less accordion sounding. But let me just quickly run through some of these. On my stock patches, I usually have a phaser and a delay. I like phaser on Mellotron. But then I also have, on one of them, I have the overtone, Boss's overtone sound. And then on the second patch, I have a rotary. So let's just, let's start with the phaser sound. I'll use the French accordion, the Mark II. Very subtle, very subtle. I reset that because I can see the meters, and if I'm playing the music at the same time, I can only imagine that it is making my voice less heard. So off and then on. Again, subtle. Delay. And here's the overtone. I'll do it off and then on. On. So that really sounds like a Leslie organ. Let's add them all together. We've got overtone, phaser, and delay. All right, let's move to the second one. You've heard the phaser and the delay. They're pretty much the same. This is the rotary. Off. On. So you can hear that kind of swirl, but again, subtle. I'll turn them all on. So we've got the rotary, the phaser, and the delay. And then I'll be using other sounds that are less accordion-like. I'm just going to go through a few of the patches. There's a lot more. Okay, we're really redlining here. Let me just, this might not be redlining in the stream, but I'm seeing it redline here. Guess I'll just, all right. I'll be fading these in. Here's a few others. Actually, I can kind of hear that fluttering at the end. The noise gate's too high. Let me try that again. All right, that's better. Stuff's kind of noisy. You may hear it, you may not. Actually, I got to rewire these two. I actually have an isolated power supply. I don't know why this is on a daisy chain, but I have to get rid of that. All right, let's keep going. Here's just another sound. I'll just go through a few sounds. So some of them completely mask the accordion sound, others don't. Let me get this back to the first patch we're going to use, and let's move over to the Space Echo. I do have a link below in the description to a video where I go in depth about how to set this up in the long delay mode, which you need to do in order to do sound-on-sound looping, and you can get up to 6 seconds of delay. And I demonstrate that. The link in the description demonstrates the looping and the setup and everything with the Mellotron. I also have one where I do it with the bass as well. So essentially, I am not using this as a delay. It is simply a sound-on-sound looper. To do that, you need to get it into long delay mode. Again, go to the video or the online manual. Page 15 will show you. You essentially hold down the tap button while putting the power in. Then depending on what head you select, and it's all in the manual, you can change some settings like the type of reverb, and you can make it into long delay mode. That's a tap delay. What I found is much easier is once you have it in long delay mode and you're back in the regular mode, you set it to head 1 and you tap out a 2-second delay. That's way easier than tapping out a 6-second delay. Then once you've done that, move the head to head 3, and that'll give you that 6-second delay. At head 1, you get 2 seconds. Head 2, you get 4 seconds. Head 3, you get that 6 seconds of delay, which is essentially Frippertronics territory, which was between 5 seconds and 6 seconds typically of delay. That's why I often say this is Mellotron Frippertronics, or let's just combine the two and call it Mellotronics. So thank you, Robert. And once you have this set up with all the knobs the way you want, I highly suggest that you save it to one of the memory slots. I have it saved to the last one, so no matter what I do, and I do change the knobs while I'm doing this, particularly the, what do they call this? The intensity knob, which is the feedback knob, that determines how fast the sound degrades and how fast the volume goes down while you're doing that sound on sound looping. I found about 1 o'clock or so is where you get the least amount of sound degradation and the least amount of volume drop. That's all relative though. The second you start using this, the sound degrades. This is not a looper in a traditional sense where what you put in is what you get out. So if you're playing music and you want to do verse chorus, or you just want to have parts where the sound never changes and you have total control over it, this is not what you want to use. Just get a plain old looper. Like I have a TC Electronics Ditto that I use for those purposes. But you get this really cool quality to that. If you listen to that introductory jam, you heard that, where it really becomes a mid-rangey sound and everything starts to smear. So I've been gabbing on for a long time here. Hopefully you've gotten a feel for the different sounds. I'm just going to go into a jam. Again, I'll start with those more clear sounding patches so you can hear the accordion, and then I'll do a solo, kind of similar to that opening jam. And then I'll move more into the other sounds and we'll see where that goes. I'll come back at the end after that, because I really want to be able to have the tail really fade out slowly, and you can kind of hear how that changes. And I don't often do that on the regular videos. So again, the streams, I've decided I'm just going to kind of work out stuff. So I'm still working on this, but probably in a month or so, there'll be the kind of traditional videos on that. So let me mute the mic and we'll just kind of get right into this. All right, let's get that to fade a little more. Hopefully it's not drowning out my voice, but I can see it going down. So I'm going to be quiet for a few seconds just so you can hear how it degrades. And that fade, I went down from 1 o'clock to noon, and you can hear that I go down to like 11, and it'll go even faster. So you could hear a bunch of different moods. And at some points, the accordion sounded exactly like accordions, and at other times they didn't. It really did depend on the effects. And still going. It's going to go for a while there, but again, even at 11 o'clock, I mean, it's taken a while to fade, but if I had kept it at the 1, it would definitely keep fading, even just a teeny bit down over time. But if you heard both at the beginning and then now, it almost compresses and gets a lot more woody. It's like the low end falls off, the high end starts falling off. Not that there's really any good high and low end to begin with. You're starting with the characteristics of what this pedal is, but and now it's almost gone. I can still hear it in here, really faded down. But once you get it set up and you save it in there, then anytime you want, you can come and just do, again, it's 6 seconds, but that's actually not that, it's a pretty long period of time. You could hear how you can go slow, you can go fast. I did this in D major, so you can kind of build chords. After you've use this for a while, you can kind of hear where the sound's going to go. Although you can get maybe half the way there. Part of why I like this is you never really know what's going to happen. Both once you start adding the notes and what that's going to do, but also with the effects, and then the characteristics of the space echo during that degradation and that fading out, everything starts to smear and becomes together. So you kind of, even at the end, you still heard some of those accordion sounds in there, but there was also a lot of other stuff going on. Well, thanks for joining me this morning. Hopefully, I'm not doing these on any scheduled time. If I do, I'll kind of post that it's upcoming. I think the next one is going to be around the kalimba, so I'll make the kalimba ambient. And also, I have a number of kalimba compositions that I've been recording, and it's been a frustrating experience. So I want to talk about frustrations with recording music and videos and things like that. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and good luck with your own music.